Well, yes, different perspectives, different dimensions, many solutions to a problem, I dare say. We've got Professor Oyewo here with us of the University of Lagos, Faculty of Law. Thank you for coming on this morning, sir.
Good morning, thank you.
Well, this is, I mean, Captain Duma talked about the law, saying, look, if we need to address some of these things, we just may need to revisit the laws. But you hear all the lawyers who will tell you, look, we've got a plethora of laws in this country, and if presently operated properly, we will get results. So it looks as though we're between a rock and a hard place. What do we do?
Well, I think we are both views. There are some, you can say we have some substance in both views, but the truth of the matter is that law is a prescription for behavior to address problems. So if the problems are not being addressed by the extant laws, you need to rethink the laws that you have. So if you look at the issue of security in Nigeria, it's very clear that we need to look at what is the nature of security challenges we are facing against the nature of security challenges we were facing when the laws were made. When the laws were made, we were not having this kind of security challenges. So there is a gap. And where there's a gap and you don't fill it, you keep on having the problem.
You know, he also tries to look at the bigger challenge, such that we don't apply the solution to one aspect of the country or one state in the country. He tried to look at it holistically, saying that, well, a clean out of security architecture in the country. But perhaps, maybe in a related development somewhat, when you wrote about the federation, talking about what manner of federalism this is in the country. What informed that perspective?
It's very interesting because if you look at the motto of Nigeria, it talks about unity, you know, progress, faith, development, and all that. And then you ask yourself, how did we get here? We got here by looking at a system that will suit the nature of our society. We are a pluralistic society, pluralistic in different, you know, aspects, in terms of resources, in terms of culture, in terms of... So the choice by the colonial masters of federalism was informed by a plural society. Now we have sustained this. In fact, this is one of the most sustained features of our constitutional practice since 1954. The only time we went out of it, it caused war. That's a Aguirre period of time. And we had, you know, the coup that took that out. And since that time consistent. But if you ask yourself, have we ever sat together, even as a pluralistic society, to look at what the colonial master did and what the military did in getting to where we are? Because apart from the period from 1960 to 1963, 64, that we had Midwestern state created, the states had created either by the colonial master or by the military master. So we have had a skewed system. Under the colonial system, it was understood that this is, you know, a counterpoise between three regional tribal systems that will allow unity in diversity. But under the military, the rationale for creating states became blurred. So you find out that the balance that was created was, you know, disequilibrium. And as a result of that, you find the structure, the institutional framework became militarized. That is centralized because military respond to a command system. So more and more things were pushed from the region to the center. Now we have a central command system, and that's antithetical to federalism. So you ask yourself, what manner of federation is this?
Even though they say that, you know, we're a federation, but you're saying that that's just on paper, but in practice, it's still a unitary system.
Constitutionally, what we are practicing now is tending towards unitary system.
When you talked about the obsolete nature of some of those laws,
yes,
is it enough to have these new operations, Potfather, the Python dance, to fill up and make up for the inadequacies of those laws?
You see, when you hear even the names they give to those operations themselves, they tend to suggest, you know, Python dance and all that. Give me a break. What's that? But that's not the issue here. If you look at the architectural design and the laws that back it up, the operational, the state actors in our security system They are opaque in their operation. They are not harmonized. They are not efficient. They have obsolete, operational system. And then there is no reform that reflects the inadequacies. So it's the same old, you can't be doing the same old thing, the same old way, and expect to achieve new results. Look at the kind of conflict and issues of internal insecurity that we are facing. They are different. The northeastern challenge is different from the north central challenge. Is different from the northwestern challenge. Is different from the south challenge, southeast, or even southwest for that matter. You cannot be doing Operation Python dance and all those dances all over the place because these people don't dance. They kill, and it's very sad that the Nigerian life doesn't really matter because maybe at the back of the people who lead us, they feel that this is an approach to depopulation because we are over 200 million. If every Nigerian life matters, the day a Nigerian life is taken, action will be taken to prevent it. You find places like Katsina State, Zamfara State. How did we get here?
Yes, because in Zamfara, that one is quite instructive. And what the government has done, shall I say, the police now, is to stop the mining activities. But one wonders if it is enough. And how do we get to that point where those bandits that are perpetrating this violence against people and killing, mayhem, we're hearing figures 30 people killed every day, 40 people, 50 people killed every day. How do we move from the point at which there is a suspension to actually apprehending or stopping or dissuading a continuation of the bandits who may be hibernating as we speak?
I think one of the proposals that I made in my inaugural lecture was to have an integrated security master plan. The kind of thing we are having, it's always federal, it's always central. What about the states? What about the community? What about even the places? These people are not phantoms. They are human beings. They move around. If somebody is carrying a gun or is organized in a way that shows a militarized something, the first people to know are the people, whether they are attacking you or they are not attacking you, you'll be able to report. And that's why you find out that the what you call the JTF, the local people, they say, they became instrumental. But have we really maximized the potential of harnessing this and forming them into an integrated system where we have intelligence that is preventive instead of being reactionary? We are proactive. We are able to arrest these people before they strike.
Where does the National Assembly or state assemblies fit in here?
Well, the National Assembly, of course, is a lawmaking body. So if the National Assembly has powers over, national security, it's supposed to be able to do, one, oversight. Does the National Assembly actually perform oversight over the military? You ask yourself. I mean, we have stories of helicopters being bought without rotors. Even the vice president, had an accident while, going. And what has been the outcome? Has there been a very directed, targeted, findings and report that has come out? And we've been having this over a period of time. Thankfully, Boko Haram, from 2015 till now, but they have changed the way they are attacking.
Because if we have obsolete laws, they should see it. If we have laws that don't just seem to be cutting it in the present-day Nigeria, they should see these things and attend to them.
The challenge is, what is the priority of the National Assembly? Because it's like you have problems all over the place. And when you have problems all over the place, the tendency is to be overwhelmed. And when you are overwhelmed, you start to, focus on the things that are cosmetic. And that's where we have gotten to. In this country, we don't go to the basic foundation of our problems. If you talk about the federation, let's start from there. This federation is faulty.
How do we start to address that?
Okay, if you want to address it, then of course you have to look at the architectural plan. If you look at our federation structurally, it's faulty. If you look at it institutionally, it's faulty. Operationally, it's faulty. integrationally is faulty, security-wise is faulty, to the extent that even things that don't have to do with the federal government is now within the domain of the federal government and killing initiative in the state. Don't forget that federalism is like a lab for experimentation in all the other regions that brings about the best way things can be done. Look at the 1960s when we had the Western region coming out with free education, A-levels, this and that, and all that dead. Why? Because somebody will just make a policy that has no bearing on the future of children of this nation because of one particular interest or whatever, and we are killing this nation. This nation has potentials to grow and move.
Should we go back to regionalism?
I am not saying we should go back to regionalism. My concept about federalism in Nigeria is that federalism must be coexistence for co-prosperity. Coexistence for co-prosperity. We must be able to fashion an existence that we all prosper. Not that the ruling class, not that the elite. In this country, in peacetime, more people are dying than in wartime. We have a large IDP people in a non-war period. These are issues. These are existential issues. And add to that is the existential issue of poverty. We have the largest population of poor people in the whole world.
Are you saying then, Prof, that this whole insecurity is largely economic?
Insecurity has multidimensional reasons. It's not largely economic. Insecurity can
I'm just trying to draw from what you just said about it.
You are not drawing from what I'm saying. Okay. You're asking a question.
Okay.
Because if you are listening to me, I'm talking beyond economics. It's a multidimensional thing. That is going to the basis of the problems that we have.
Now, you made reference to the Constitution, to the 60s and all of that.
Yeah.
All of that was pre-military. And if you also, I'm sure you also know that we've had more constitutions done during the military era than in the civilian era. Is there any way, I mean, do you see the National Assembly able or capable of coming up with a contemporary constitution that can address these structural, fundamental issues that you've mentioned?
You know, there are certain counter-narratives or counter-proposals along the line of what you are talking about. There are some who feel that the problems are so fundamental that you can't talk about National Assembly. So you find people talking about true federalism. You find people talking about restructuring, people talking about decentralization, people talking about devolution, and even people talking about secession.
Are those things possible without changing the law or the Constitution?
Now, there are those who believe that constitutionally it is possible. In fact, there are those who credit our federal system as the safety valve against decentralization and, failure of state that has taken out in DR, Congo, Liberia, Sudan, and all that. Yes, that is all good and fine. But we can be better. And to be better, from my own discipline, I will talk constitutional option. That's what I understand. That's what I practice. Mm-hmm. There are others who feel that's why we have to listen to all the other dimensions and come up with what will work for us. It's gotten to the point that we are no longer listening to ourselves. Everything is about political correctness or political interest. You see, the age I've gotten to, it's like when I was parenting my children, at the age when they were vulnerable and they could not talk, I was excessively protective of them. And now I'm at that age when I'm excessively protective of my grandchildren, even though I've not met them yet. But I think we have to think of the future. Because a nation is an existence and relationship between those who have gone, those who are here, and those who are yet unborn. When we focus on ourselves, we consume everything, destroy everything, and don't think about the future of the children who are yet unborn. What future are we planning for Nigerians? When I look back to the kind of past I've had, when I tell my students in the class that, in my days we used to have bursary, that's you can't possibly, who gives that kind of thing now? And that's where we are getting to that. The present leadership is too self-involved. I'll take you to a good example. We are wondering how we'll pay salaries. And the next thing somebody thinks, let's increase VAT. I would think that the first thing is to ask, how do we reduce the cost of running government? How do we reduce the amount of billions that goes to people that are doing nothing? Why are we in this day and age still paying military heads of state who took the law into their own hands? And we spend billions on those ones. What about the Nigerians who are law-abiding, who have not committed of any offense?
You know, sir, that many of these things you're talking about are products of laws. I mean, there are some regulations, some laws, some rules, some guidelines that are informing some of these things. If we are going to correct some of these things, I would think then from what you have said that there is a need to look at those books that guide these actions, that inform these actions. And the ground norm of those laws is the Constitution. So is there anything that can be done in that fundamental book?
Yes, there are things that can be done. If you look at even the 2014, confab report, there are proposals for what you call rebalancing or restructuring from at least the architectural design of our federalism, taking a lot of the centralized items in the exclusive legislative list and diffusing them into the concurrent legislative list. There are proposals to look at even this, the security infrastructure. And that's how issues of policing, whether we want state policing, regional policing, community policing, let's even come up, because what we are working now doesn't work. I mean, our police have to be sustained. Lagos State is sustaining the police for us to have the security. So why don't we look at that as an experimentation?
What do you think is responsible for the holdback of championing some of these things? Because clearly it's not that we don't know that these things are happening or could happen.
You just asked the question, is the Constitution? Because the Constitution...
No, these recommendations you talked about in the 2014 confab, for instance, it's been there. Some people, some good thinking people will say, okay, these are good ideas. So what's holding us back from executing them?
Well, the thing that is holding us back, we have what you call eternity clauses, majoritarian clauses, and interest clauses in the Constitution. What we call eternity clause is a clause that tends to perpetuate the status quo. So, for instance, in the Constitution, sections 8 and 9 creates a status quo that must be maintained except you have the consent of the majority. So, which is the majoritarian clause again. So, you have eternity clause merged with majoritarian clauses, which means you can't change something without 2/3 majority, and 2/3 majority means those whose interests, may be affected may not go that way. So if you look at the confab, the 7th National Assembly and the 8th National Assembly, did they really go into it? Yes, they did. The 7th Assembly did. There was a case in court that stopped it because of also the majoritarian interest. Because some of the sections were amended that were not so they went to court and stopped it.
What do you think this 9th National Assembly should be focusing on to address this problem?
That's the line of thought I'm establishing. Okay. So the 8th Assembly took it up, and then we had what you call the 4th Amendment. So the 4th Amendment is the first constitutional amendment that goes beyond the mundane. So we have the 1st Amendment, 2nd Amendment, not so mundane, but electoral issues. The 3rd Amendment, the National Industrial Court. But the 4th Amendment is still going on because there are still provisions of the 4th Amendment with a presidency that need to be signed into the law. And we have had like 4 amendments, particularly in terms of independence of the judiciary, independence of the legislature. You are not too young to vote and all that. But these are just a bit of what we are talking about. We need to have a holistic, fundamental, architectural redesign.
Let me get a straight answer from you, yes or no. Will devolution of powers stop all this crisis that we see in states?
Our problem is complex. Devolution of power itself is not the end, of everything. It's not the be-all and end-all. Even if you devolve powers in a decentralized approach, there are questions about the competence of the state in a decentralized approach. So, for instance, my own argument is that a purely constitutional political approach will not solve our problem. So let's have a mix of a regional economic coexistence for co-prosperity. So let's go back to expecting deliverables from the states. So not only does states become payers of salaries, repairers of roads, and constructors of bridges. That's all they do.
So what would this new, how would this new structure look like?
So the new something would be like an architectural design where a state will have an economic development master plan, like they did in the West. So they took care of education, they took care of industrial, we had industrial estates.
Yeah, but with that, we need to take away some of those things from the exclusive legislative list.
That's what I'm saying, that you need to take them from the exclusive, but if you are taking them, you must have a change mindset for the states. If you don't have this, a change mindset for the state, and you see, some regions have gone through this. So we have the Southwest in the Odua, we have the North in the Arewa, we have the South-South in Brace. The only region, the two regions that are yet to form an economic something is the Southeast and the North Central. So once we have that approach, then we start seeing the pyramids of groundnut, of cocoa, of, you know, of developing deep sea advantage. The South side should develop an advantage based on their resources. The Southwest develop an advantage based on their resources. And then the North Central, an agrarian something, solving the problem of pastoralists. And interestingly, we have the Abraham case coming out by the ECOWAS court, condemning our government in the way they have mismanaged security, even in the North Central.
Well, a plethora of solutions, so we're just hoping that we can focus and internalize and practice some of these things so that we all can have the kind of solution that we require. Always appreciate your coming on, Prof. Professor Oyewo of Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, also spoke recently in that like inaugural lecture about what manner of federalism